Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to show our final respects to a true Gadol Hador, Chacham, Harav Ovadia Yosef, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. I was just listening a moment ago to some of the responses, not so much to who Rav Ovadia Yosef was, but to the responses to the showings at his Levaya. There were over 800,000 people who came to Yerushalayim just a little bit over a month ago. 2 days ago was the Shloshim for Rav Ovadia. There were 100,000 people who came to the Shloshim in Sanhedria, the Sanhedria cemetery. But at the Levaya itself, there were over 800,000 people who came. I don't think that perhaps in all of Jewish history there was ever a funeral with that kind of attendance. And indeed, I had heard stories of Bnei Yeshiva and Benot Seminary. Their Rebbeim told them, you have to make a special bracha because this is unique. This is a unique situation which we're unlikely to see ever again. The koach of Rav Ovadia Yosef was that he was a great unifier of all of Klal Yisrael. Unfortunately, among the Ashkenazi community, I don't think that we've ever seen such a personality that had such tremendous success in unifying not only the Orthodox community, but the non-Orthodox as well. That was one of the great kochot of Harav Ovadia Yosef. Well, what we also sometimes fail to realize is that the public persona of Rav Yosef was known to the public in one way, but was known to the Bnei Yeshiva. For those of us who studied his Torah, I have to tell you, in preparing certain shiurim where I know that I'm going to have something from one of the many, many different svarim of Rav Yosef, I almost look at it with a sense of dread and trepidation, because I know that if Rav Ovadia Yosef wrote something about it, he will have an exhaustive discussion that is far more thorough and comprehensive than anything else that's out there. But it also means I'm going to have to spend a couple of hours trying to get through every single point that he makes, because no one wrote with the level of depth and the level of bikius, the level of encyclopedic knowledge that this man possessed. And therefore, what we witnessed a month ago was the loss of really what I would call a throwback to a bygone era of Gadol. Unfortunately, we lost, with the passing of Rav Ovadia Yosef, a Talmid Chacham who was a kolbo that we haven't seen in many, many decades. And so it is truly a loss for Klal Yisrael. Fortunately, we have many of his encyclopedic works that will console us for many years to come. But we thought it was only fitting to be able to invite one of our local Rabbanim, who was so close with Rav Ovadia Yosef. One of the true joys of my work is to be able to liaise regularly with Rav Assayag, who is not only a great Talmid Chacham, not only a great manhig of his kihila, but is a true gentleman, a true mensch, and just a joy to be able to know that I have someone like this that I can consult with regularly in the community. We therefore ask Rav Chacham Amram Assayag to give us words of consolation and words of Hespid at this time.
Thank you very much, Rav Korobkin. I must say that from all the people that invited us to speak and give divrei Hespid, you were the first one who contacted me very early, a few days after the Petira, to ask that we hold this evening. It shows the great appreciation that you have for Chacham Ovadia, as you described very well now, and the opportunity that you want to give to your Kehillah to be able to understand a figure that is from other generations, not our own. And I thank you very much for this opportunity. And indeed, it's a pleasure to always be able to have our friendly discussions and the opportunity to exchange ideas. Yeah.
If anyone's having difficulty hearing Assayag, we'll ask Rabbi Assayag to speak up just a little bit. But also, if you want to come downstairs, you're more than welcome to. There's plenty of room downstairs and you'll be able to better hear. We could ask the men to move over to this side. That way the ladies can hear better.
Okay. The Midrash says the following. Noach amar le Moshe. Noach told Moshe Rabbeinu, Ani gadol mimecha. I'm greater than you. Shenitzalti midor hamabul, because I was saved from the dor hamabul. I was picked from everyone else and rescued and saved. Amar le Moshe. Moshe answered to Noach, Ani nitaleti yoter mimcha. I have elevated myself much higher than you. Ata itzalta et atzmecha. You saved yourself. Velo haya becha koach leatzil et dorcha. But you did not have strength to save your generation with you. Aval ani itzalti et atzmi. But I saved myself. Ve'itzalti et dori. And I saved my generation. Keshenitchayvu kalaya ba'egel, at the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had decreed a destruction of Am Yisrael Bar Minan by the Egel. The Midrash goes on and gives us a mashal, and at the end it says, Hada hu dichtiv ve'at alita kulana. You surpassed them all. This is what was said about Moshe Rabbeinu. And these are very befitting words to say about Chacham Ovadia Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Libracha. He came to this world. Did he not only make himself one of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim in Jewish history, certainly in many generations, but he insisted in making our generation a generation of Torah, a generation that he was able to present to them a way of learning, a quality of learning, and the broad shoulders that he had to show us not to be afraid of psak, not to be afraid to render decisions, not to be afraid to be unpopular, because that is our Torah. Chacham Ovadia was born in Baghdad in the 12th day of Tishrei, in the year Tefaer, Tafresh Pe Aleph, Tefaer, glory, you will glorify, which indeed he did his entire life. And he was named after two of the greatest Chachamim of the previous generation. His name, Ovadia, was given for the teacher of the Ben Ish Chai, whose name was Avdallah Somech, Avdallah, the translation in Hebrew is Ovadia, and Yosef was the name of the Ben Ish Chai, Yosef Chaim. And he was named after these two Gedolim. And indeed, the impact was seen every day of his life. At a young age, 5.5, they moved to Yerushalayim. And we see this young boy doing exceptionally well in what learning Torah requires, beyond anything that you could find at his age. There's a sefer in his sifriya, in his large, vast sifriya that he has. An old sefer, Reshit Chokhmah, is a sefer of Musar that the Sfaradim very much use. And he had a copy there, and they found a note made by himself that he got this sefer as a gift when he was 9 years old, because he had just recited the following Masechtot Be'al Peh, by heart, to his Rabbi Shlomo Abu, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Bracha, and he lists the Masechtot that he had learned: Shabbat, Pesachim, Avot, Sukkah, Yoma, and in Baba Metzia he recited Be'al Peh the following Perakim: Shenayim Orzim Betalit, Elu Metziot, HaMafkid VeHaZahav. 9 years old. That says quite a lot. We find him at the age of 16 producing his first sefer. Obviously not the sefer that we got to see later, but at 16 he had already written enough that he wanted to publish. His father used to give him half a grush to go. They used to live in BAYT Israel, and Porat Yosef was in the Ir Atika in front of the Kotel, where it's still today. And the money for the bus, the fare, he would keep in a drawer, and he would walk back and forth home. And his father found once that he had collected all this money. He asked him, "What are you doing with this?" He says, "I'm writing a sefer. I need some money to publish." At 16. In essence, all the Gedolim of that time had been able to sense in him a gadlut that was very difficult in their eyes to even imagine how it would develop. But they saw that there was something phenomenal that they hadn't seen before in anyone. We find Chacham Ezra Atiyah, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Libracha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Porat Yosef, their Rabbi, the teacher of all the Chachamim that you may have known in our generation, all the Rishon LeZion, everyone that is famous, they all learned in Porat Yosef under the direction of Chacham Ezra Atiyah. We find that Rav Ovadia's father, living in the poverty that they lived, needed help. He had a small makolet and needed help from Rav Ovadia to help him out in the store, and he removed him from the yeshiva. Chacham Ezra Atiyah went to his father and told him, "Where's your son?" He told him, "I need him." And it was the norm in those days. There was such poverty. So Chacham Ezra Atiyah told him, "Your son is not a good worker. He's always reading this. Maybe I can find you somebody better and send your son to the yeshiva." So the father was a Talmid Chacham himself. He told him, "Fine, if there is another worker that you can find me, that won't cost." Certainly. And the story goes that Chacham Ezra Atiyah came back in the morning and he said, "Tell me what to do. I'm here to work." And Rabbi Yaakov, the father of Chacham Ovadia, told the Rosh Yeshiva, my son is a child. Your Torah is so much more important. He told him, no. You should know the Torah of your son is more important than mine. He never came back to the store. This was the sense that these Chachamim had. We find them some years later learning in the renowned Kollel that was perhaps the Kollel of Yerushalayim at the time, the old Yerushalayim, of Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh, the Rav of Yerushalayim. He was one of the Avrechim that came in the afternoons to learn in the Kollel. There was a great impact, and I'll mention some of the details in the life of Chacham Ovadia from that Kollel. But we see Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank giving a tremendous degree of attention to this young man. And at some point, he makes him the chavruta of his own son-in-law, Rav Shmuel Rozovsky, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Ibracha, who ended up later being the Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh. And they learned together. But once they notice something very peculiar, the Avrechim used to be in the Kollel. I'm waiting for Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank to arrive to give a shiur. But once it happened that Rav Ovadia arrived late, and the Tzvi Pesach Frank was there already. And when Rav Ovadia came, he stood up for him, not melo komato, but behidur. And this shocked the Talmidim. It shocked him so much that one went over to Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank and asked him, you got up for... It did not use necessarily a nice word for a Sephardi boy. And he told him, you should know, I got up for him because he's going to be the Meshiv of next generation. He's going to be the one who's going to give the answers to all the difficult questions of the next generation. And over there he became part of that Kollel. It is known that in the morning, Rav Shmuel Rozovsky and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadikim Livracha, used to learn B'Chavruta. And at the beginning, they spent much time discussing their opinions about what they were learning. And they would wait for the afternoon for Rav Ovadia to arrive and expose in front of him their different opinions. And what they had gained from that was that Rav Ovadia was able to tell them, what you're saying, this Chacham says it. And what you're saying, this opinion, this Chacham says it. You'll find it in this Sefer, in that Sefer. They say that it got to the point where it was already, they saved time. They figured, let's have our argument, we'll decide what we stand, and let's not argue any further. We'll wait for Rav Ovadia to tell us where we can find our opinions. This is the type of respect that they had for him and the understanding of what a Gadol was being formed in front of them in a very special way. Many years later, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was sitting in the sukkah of Rav Ovadia, and he had a Yabia Omer in front of him in the sukkah. And some of the people in Yerushalayim, some people came, people that are not necessarily looking for positive reactions, and they made a comment. Look, he's sitting and learning his own sefer in the sukkah. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach reacted, and he told them, this was said by somebody that was there, you think Rav Ovadia is a Gadol Ador today? He would have been the Gadol Ador 100 years ago also. And when these people left, he told the other people that were there, you should know there is a big difference between Rabbi Ovadia and the rest of us who learned in the same kollel. Rabbi Ovadia had the omet, those were the words, the courage, liskor et hasefer, to close the book, velaredet la'am, and to go down to the people. And he said, we didn't have it. At the time, all the Gedolim were learning in that kollel. But Rav Ovadia knew how to close. There was time for learning, and there was time to close the Sefer and to go to anybody that called him to teach Torah. The first years he was teaching Torah to simple people because he was driven to bring back Torah, especially to the Sfaradim that had lost it in the last generations. There was a glory of Sephardic Jewry that he wanted to reinstate. And he closed the book. While he was writing the greatest of the Teshuvot, he didn't mind to stop and to go and teach anybody at any time. We only know him in his later years when he was teaching through a Lavian, through satellite, and he was reaching the entire world. But in essence, his whole life was devoted to teaching Torah to every single type of person that could exist. In the time that he spent at this kollel, I believe that one of the great influences were his attitude in Psak. He repeated many times, and he wrote it in his Sfarim. How once Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank was asked about his firm positions that he used to take in halakha, and sometimes also not so popular. And he used to tell a story of his own grandfather of Leibele of Kovna, who was named to be the Rav of Kovna at the same time that Rav Yisrael Salanter was in Kovna. And he made a condition that he would only accept the position if Rav Yisrael Salanter also would have a Rabbanut position. And while people thought that it was an inyan of kavod, how can I be the Rav and Rav Yisrael Salanter is here, he too should be the Rav, he explained that was not the reason. The reason was because if he does not accept upon himself the yoke of Psak, then we will have different opinions. When you are in a position where you have to make decisions in halakha, then you see things different. When you're sitting and learning in a yeshiva, things look totally different. And this followed him. In essence, we know that there is a tshuva of Rav Chaim Volozhiner in Chut HaMeshulash, where somebody argues with him in Psak, and he writes to him, Kevod Torato note lechumra, you want to be machmir in what I was mekir, mipnei she'en hadavar mutar alav, because you have no obligation to decide. Ve'ani hayiti kamohu, I used to be like you, terem hutal alai ol ha'hora'ah, before the yoke of Psak was put upon me. Ata she'elu al tzavari ol ha'hora'ah, ראיתי חובה לנפשי להתחזק בכל כוחי בכוחה דהתרה. Now that I have the yoke of hora'ah, then I have to look at things different, and koach dehetera becomes something very, very important. This followed him through his life, where he took some of the greatest decisions, whether it is the Ethiopian Jewry, whether it's the Karaim, issues that burnt in Am Yisrael and nobody wanted to touch them. Rightfully so. Who has the shoulders to carry the burden? 900 agunot of the Yom Kippur War. All of them were brought to him. It was a year, the family says, that he didn't eat, he didn't sleep. He lived these agunot. And he permitted each and every one of them to remarry. Where some of them, you know what the circumstances were, it's war. You can't even recognize the bodies. When we speak about what he did to this generation, we don't even understand. And this all came from it living in a terrible poverty where all the conditions were that he could not succeed. He had 11 children in a one-bedroom. Some of the children, I've heard many times through the years, tell us that he used to sit in the living room, dining room, whatever, the one room that wasn't the bedroom, and learn late at night. And the children were sleeping around him on the floor. And they went to sleep every night, hearing him learning Torah. And to him, it was constant. There was nothing at all that stopped him. Nothing at all that stopped him every minute of the day. Friday afternoons, there were times that he got ready in the morning already for Shabbat, and he learned the whole Friday. There was a time that he actually went into Shabbat, and the Kahal finished the tefillot of Friday night, and he was still learning without realizing that the time had come. It was learning 24 hours a day. Even in his older age, when he had the tremendous burden of Am Yisrael on him, they used to joke about the fact that he used to divide the mail. And he used to tell them, this mail put on my desk and this mail put on my night table. Night table. He hardly slept. He used to say, Bishtayim Yosef, the Pasuk. He spoke always in Pesukim. His language was just biblical language. It says by the Malachim that at 2, they fly up. So that's the time for sleeping. I have a friend who's a Dayan in Ashkelon who learned in his kollel, and the first position that they offered him was a position where he would have to go to weddings and bar mitzvahs. There was a lot of social life. And he told them, I don't want to take it. It's going to take me away from learning if I go every night somewhere. And so he told them, why? From 10 in the evening till 2 in the morning is not enough, not good hours to learn. And to him it was a tava pashut that you don't go to sleep before 2 o'clock in the morning. What do you take your position, do what you have to do, and come home and sit down and learn. But this is how he went through day in and day out. From the time he was a child, all through. They saw it. They knew that he was going to be the Gadol Ador. This is true what I'm going to tell you because I heard it again this week in the Hespedim from Rav David Cohen, who is the Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron. Repeated it again, and everybody knows that Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank told his daughter, the Rabbanit Rozovsky, when Rav Ovadia was young, in his 20s, she told him, whenever Rav Ovadia comes to see me, it doesn't matter which Gedolim are sitting outside waiting for me. He has to go in first because he's somebody that is particular about every minute, and I don't want to waste his time of learning. So as soon as you see him coming in, let him in. And this was repeated, which I was happy to hear it for because Rav David Cohen is a grandson of Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank. This is the way they looked at him. This is the way he established himself. The kavod that they had. There's an interesting story that just came out recently. His chavruta in Porat Yosef, and for years after, was Chacham ben Zion Abba Shaul, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. They used to walk together, and they used to learn a blat on the way to the Ir Atika, and the blat back, Be'al Peh. And like this, they finished Shas several times, just on the walk to go to the yeshiva and so on. They were extremely, extremely close, and he was one of the poskim, also Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul of our generation. And he had a tremendous degree of respect for Rav Ovadia. One day Rav Ovadia came to him and told him, I have a major problem. They were neighbors. Rav Ovadia lived on the first floor, and Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul lived on the third floor. And Rav Ovadia came to him one day and says, we have a problem. They're talking about opening a Beit HaKnesset under our building. There's in Eretz Israel. So I don't know what's going to be. We're going to have to be careful where we sleep, where that it's not even right above the Aron. Problems of halacha. And he says, I wish I didn't have this problem. Every night I'm going to worry the couple of hours that I sleep, where I'm sleeping, what corner, what this. So Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul told him, I understand your problem, but I've been in that predicament since I moved into this building, because I'm living on top of you, and I'm sleeping, and every night I think, where should I sleep? He was mamash a Sefer Torah for him. He was a Sefer Torah. There was no difference between the Sefer Torah in the Beit HaKnesset or the Sefer Torah in the apartment below. Rav Ovadia was a Sefer Torah, and they treated him as such, and they believed that his Torah was a Torah of another generation altogether. Like Rav Korobkin said, one of his big ma'alot was the ability that he had to unite Am Yisrael, all the religious, the non-religious, but even on the other side, Rav Weiss of the Edah Haredit, Rav Lau told the story, the new chief rabbi, that his grandfather, Rav Frankel, who was the Rav of Tel Aviv, came to see Rav Weiss, who was the Gaon of the Edah Haredit. And he walked in, he saw the Abiyah Omer Sfarim right at the forefront. So if you understand, Edah Haredit, the Rabbanut HaRashit, it doesn't go together. He asked him, Itachen? He says, is it possible today to write a teshuvah without looking at the Sefer of Rav Ovadia? And privately he told somebody, Rav Weiss, that if he was forced to choose one set of Sfarim to travel with or to go with and leave the rest, he would take Rav Ovadia's Sfarim because they include all the other Sfarim. Whatever you want, you're going to find there. It's this encyclopedia work that he did in a phenomenal way. We could spend the whole night telling stories about the way he remembered and the way he learned, and it was really a gadol that was able to go down to the people, was able to worry. Sometimes he was much misrepresented. He was a kind, loving person who cried all the time. If you would know the cases of Agunot that he cried for, if you would know how he dealt with the Yetomim, the stories they will be written, and you will see that there was somebody here who had a very, very special neshama. I'm sure most of you, or maybe not, but it's certainly worth repeating. The one famous story that was going through the Levaya, and I had the zechut to be there at Ashkavte the Rabbi. When it's a big zechut, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed me to be there at the time. I was there for Sukkot, and it happened shortly after. And the story of the time that he was in the hospital, and he had a heart attack, and there was a blockage, and there was a need to do angioplasty right away. And the doctors told him, we have to do it. He was 83 at the time. It's a sakana. So he told them, okay, we can do it, but I need 3 hours. What do you need 3 hours for? He says, I have to go home for 3 hours. So the children also, they didn't understand. This is a sakana, it's a risk. You're not well, and they need to do this right away. So he told them, I'm in the middle of writing a teshuvah. To be matir an aguna that has been an aguna now for 10 years. And I found a heter for her. I need 3 hours to finish so she can be free to remarry. So they told him, she waited 10 years. This angioplasty is something that after 2 days you go home. So she waited 10 years. She'll wait another 2 days after you come home. And you're right, you'll finish the teshuvah. And everything will be fine. So he told them, that's easy for you to say. But if chas v'shalom something happens to me, what will be with that aguna? And he went home. And he finished the teshuvah. And he allowed her to get married, and then he came back to the hospital. And this was day in and day out. Day in and day out. We haven't seen yet, in any aspect of his life, we don't understand. Not in his learning, we don't understand his way of learning and the abilities that he had. But he was focused that he was here with a purpose for Am Israel to teach halakha. And he never lost that focus. You see, all the Sefarim are Sefarim of halakha. And people think at the time he let them believe that he was limited. He was good in halakha and that was that. We know for a fact that for 14 years, every Friday, he learned Kabbalah with Chacham Mordechai Sharabi, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Yivracha, who was the Mekubal. And it doesn't make sense that he didn't learn Kabbalah. For 14 years, what it meant was learning on Fridays was that he learned during the week. And on Fridays, he used to go to Mordechai Sharabi to check that what he's coming up with is right. He wrote a sefer on Pirkei Avot. Yeah, it's available. We all have it. Yeah, Anaf Etz Avot. It was such a struggle to get him to write it. They used to tell him, you gave shiurim in Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is something that attracts the Amonam. Write it. And he refused. For a long time, he refused. And the children used to insist, the people around him, it's needed. It's needed. And he had a terrible time doing it. He could not get himself to remove himself from the focus of what he came to this world for. Psak and halakha was his life. At the end he gave in. But he gave in with one condition. He told them, this is what I'm writing. I'm sitting every night for 30 minutes to write the Perush Anaf Etz Avot, and I'm not looking at any other sefer. Whatever I have in my mind, that's all that's going to go to that sefer. Because if you know, he had people employed just to get him Sfarim. Because he quoted so many Sefarim that he used to start the Teshuvah and he would end up with a mountain of Sfarim in front of him. And that he didn't want to do for Pirkei Avot because that wasn't his focus. His time was precious. He wrote 50 Sfarim in his life. 50 Sfarim where every Sefer has millions of references. I'll tell you, I had the zechut, for some reason or other, to meet him the first time in 1971. He was still not the Rav Rashi. He was in Tel Aviv, the Rav Rashi of Tel Aviv. And the Rav Rashi of Tel Aviv, he used to joke, I heard him once joking, that the only reason why he became the Rav Rashi in Tel Aviv is because of a refrigerator. So they asked him, refrigerator? He said, yeah. He was the Dayan in Petach Tikva. He had time to learn. Tel Aviv is a difficult city at any time. for Rabbanut, for Kashrut, it was headaches that took away every moment of his life. So when they offered him the Tel Aviv position, he was not interested. I mean, he knew it was going to take away a lot of his time. So there were two influences that made him go and take the Tel Aviv position. Chacham Ezra Atiyah, he was his Rabbi, he went, he asked him what to do. And he told them, go and take Tel Aviv. And there was a terrible response in the Talmidim, in Porat Yosef, and the whole area where he used to teach. He used to teach in the Yazdim, the Bukharim. He had shiurim, he had 6-7 shiurim per day going. They all came to Chacham Ezra Atiyah and told him, what are you doing? You're living as Ketzon Shen Laim Roeh. You're taking away our shepherd. So he told them, Erenu veloata, I'm looking at him, not as you see him today. Loata, I'm looking at him what will be in the future. And the Chacham Ezratia, who was a man of very few words, told all these Talmidim, you should know he's going to Tel Aviv to be the Rabbi Rashi of Tel Aviv. Then he's going to be the Rabbi Rashi of Eretz Israel. And then he's going to be the Rabbi Rashi of the entire world. That's what I see. So I want him to go. And Nitkayem, there is no question. I can tell you that if there is Torah in Buenos Aires, it was his doing. And without any question, they will tell you. The whole South America changed with his shiurim, with his visits. He affected the entire world. The entire world. The other influence in Tel Aviv was his wife. She told them, with 11 children, they live in such terrible poverty. I heard Rabbi David, one of his sons, say, I was there, that they couldn't eat dinner together, whatever dinner was, because they had to have shifts. They didn't have enough spoons for the kids. So a few kids would eat, and they would wash the spoons, and the next group would eat, and then they didn't have spoons. So he laughed once. He says, I became the Rabbi Rashi of Tel Aviv because my wife wanted a refrigerator. She told me, I can't live without a refrigerator with so many children. Yeah, they gave you a job. They're going to pay you a few lirot more. You have to take it. But it's in jest. But in essence, that was his life, a life of devotion to Torah in a way that we can't see it. We can't see that it's human. How he affected the masses, like Rav Korobkin said, look at what happened at the Levaya. Now, I can tell you one thing. There were 3 hours in between the announcement of the Levaya and the Levaya. Some people in France were trying to get already on planes, even if they got till the end of the Levaya. The problem is that you couldn't get into Yerushalayim, even those that came already. If the Levaya would have been the next day, the whole New York would have gone. The whole Europe, there would have been 2 million people. Because he affected everybody long distance. They felt a closeness. They felt that there was someone there. It's Yerushalayim was mamash darkei Tzion avelot. You should have seen that day how Yerushalayim was draped in avelut. Everybody had lost their father. And it was real. It was real. The people were crying, were all kinds of people. You couldn't understand. You couldn't understand why certain people were crying, because every type of person was crying. A Hasid who had a Rebbe was crying. A Chiloni who doesn't have Torah mitzvot was crying. Children were crying like babies. It was something out of this world that showed us the greatness of Torah, what Torah does. At the end of the day, he was the biggest marbitz Torah that we had. Everybody relied on him. Everybody left all the big questions to him. They all knew all the years that he sat together with Rabbi Yashiv in the Bet Adin HaGadol. All the years they had a tremendous level of respect for him, that they knew that there were certain things that were best left for him to decide, because he was able to find the sources. He was able to find what was unheard of before. I think we have to understand that one of the phenomenal things that happened as a result of the way he learned is the amount of Sfarim that nobody heard of, and he had seen them once. As I said, the first time I met him, it was in a bookstore standing in a corner. And I saw him, I got excited, and he was totally concentrated in the corner. His koach of rikuz was unbelievable. They knew in the house that you could make all the noise in the world. All the noise in the world. It wouldn't disturb him. The children used to bring him, the great-grandchildren, this. They ran all over. He never heard anything. Recently, they had to change the tiles in the house. And they took one of the people that daven in the shul, And they told him, we need to change the tiles. He says, I'm not doing it. He said, what do you mean you're not doing it? It's for the Rav. He said, no, I can't. I'm going to come and have to cut these tiles. Yeah, the screeching noise. I'm going to take achrayut on his not learning Torah because I'm disturbing him. I'm not interested. They told him he starts learning at 9 o'clock. At 9:15, he hears nothing. Come and make all the noise you want. He's already, and kachaya. Once he was learning, he was totally disconnected from anything around him, and he was only devoted to Torah and to learning, and that's why he reached the high levels of psak that he reached. He brought to life so many authors of Sefarim that didn't have the zechut. What happened afterwards is that many of these Sefarim were reprinted. Once he started mentioning them, once he started saying where he saw them, many of these Sefarim were reprinted. He brought Techiyat HaMetim to these people that printed Sefarim once, and had the poverty was in Am Yisrael. Who had money? He himself, he didn't have money to buy paper. To buy paper, it was a big struggle for him to take pieces. He used to write on small pieces that he used to find. And there were many tzaddikim through the generations that wrote and disappeared. When he was in Kahir, for the 2 years that he was in Cairo, he learned so much Torah from the Genizah, from that is not to be found. And all that was reproduced, all that he brought to Am Yisrael, gifts that we haven't had in generations. The amount of Sefarim that there is, because of him, because he mentions them, because he put in somebody's mind, this one is from this city and that one. And by the way, if you ever heard him speaking, you don't see it so much in writing, but he knew the biography of every sefer. He could tell you cities in Poland and this, that he didn't even, it was difficult to pronounce. But he knew. He knew every sefer that he mentioned, he would tell you the name of the Chacham and which city he lived and where he lived. He brought all these people back to life in a way that really changed the whole outlook of halacha. His own Sfarim, like Korobkin said, are here to stay with us. You should know he wrote 50 Sfarim. Who knows how much more there is? One of the children says there is material for another 10. Yesterday they put out the Shabbat Chelik Zayin for the Shloshim. It just came out. The Chazon Ovadia, they worked in his house. They have a whole kollel in his house now, sitting and looking book for book, sefer by sefer, to see the notes that he put on the side. That's all, just to collect the notes on the Sefarim, not the manuscripts. The manuscripts they have. But there is so many notes on the side that he would write, that they have a whole kollel sitting at the table in his library, and going sefer through sefer. He wrote these Sfarim. I was Chol HaMoed. I was in the house of Rabbi Buchatzira Shlita, and one of the famous publishers came in. And Ovadia was very sick. We were talking about his impact in the world and so on. And he told us, you don't understand his impact, from their point of view, of the publishers. I said, yeah. He says, a Rosh Yeshiva writes a sefer, publishes 1,000 Sfarim, 2,000 Sfarim. It's hard to find somebody that publishes 3,000 Sfarim. It's very hard. They don't sell. That's what it is. Rabbi Ovadia Sefer, every single publishing is 50,000 Sfarim. There isn't a Beit HaMidrash in the world that doesn't have his Sfarim. 50,000, he told us. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. But this is a man in the business. He knows. And he's a Hasid Gur. He wasn't a Sephardi. He was trying to promote Rav Ovadia. He was telling us really what he sees in the business. 50,000 Sfarim over each sefer. There is much to be said. These Sfarim, he knew them by heart. These Sfarim and the whole Torah he knew by heart. He could quote at any time, at any day. As a matter of fact, in the moment when he was in the hospital, that was always the testing point. The first time it wasn't so bad. So the doctor wanted to see how alert he was after anesthesia, and he asked him, what's today? What's, is it day? He said, no, it's, the typical questions that he asked, and he didn't have patience for that. He told him, you want to know? Bring me a shas, take the first letter of any daf, and I'll tell you. Just to see whether, unfortunately, the doctor didn't understand. He thought he asked him to vote for shas, so he told him, he hadn't voted for shas ever, But that was his, and lately in this, one of the last times that they were very afraid that he would have been affected, his mind would have been affected. The children asked him something that is not found in many places when he woke up, and he told them it's in Yosef, it's in the Chida, in the Sefer of the Chida. Yeah, in this page, that's where it is. So they asked him, when was the last time you saw it? He told them 63 years ago. This is after being under. Like he didn't even have to think. You understand the mind? It was just under anesthesia. If he didn't remember 63 years, I think he would have been forgiven. Maybe that he remembered where it is in the Sefer on its own. But to remember when was the last time, and he used to say it every time he spoke. He used to say, I know somebody that once he asked him a favor. He had seen an Ashkenazi Sefer, and he was writing and using that teshuvah that this Rav had written, and he asked this person, "Can you get me the Sefer?" So he told him, "There's one person that I know that has the Sefer, but what do you need the Sefer?" He told him, "I saw it 40 years ago. And I quoted him in the Sefer. And I'm not sure that I'm quoting him the exact words. So bring the Sefer, I want to check and take it back." This person told me that it was word for word, not missing one letter. What he had seen 40 years ago, he wrote it down word for word. They checked, they read, he read, they read. Exactly. It's phenomenal, the mind of Torah that he had. He only lived with Torah. He only understood with Torah, and he saved the entire generation. Whereas I wanted to know, we don't have much time, right? With all that, the controversy that came around him many times, he was focused in bringing Torah to Am Yisrael. He was focused in elevating the Torah level among the Sfaradim. All his political campaigns, were all campaigns of Torah. The only cheshbon that he had with Shas party was simply how many yeshivot to open up. That's all that counted. That's all that wanted. The politicians knew that they only had 10 minutes a day from his time. They all knew that. You come to Shachrit, you have 10 minutes after Shachrit to talk to. And after that, it's Torah. But the purpose was that, and I want you to know, people don't know how successful he was, that today, the majority of boys in the Yeshivot Ketanot are Sfaradim. He succeeded in a way that the numbers, there may not be a high majority, but for the first time, now understand that he was coming from Yeshivat Porat Yosef, which was the glorious Fardism in Yerushalayim and in the east, really in Baghdad, the Yeshivat Porat Yosef was the place. And he used to say with pain, I heard him so many times say with pain, I used to go to a shiurim in the 70s already, when there was time to talk, when there wasn't the rush and this. And they used to open up and speak. He said there were 70 Talmidim in Porat Yosef. The whole Porat Yosef was 70 Talmidim. What are you going to compare next to me or next to Ponevezh? There was nothing. And he succeeded in bringing Torah yeshivot to the entire world. And without being mevatel a minute of Torah at all. Conscious of every minute of what he has to do, what he has to spend his time with. There was nothing that you could make him change in his Seder Hayom. Many of the conversations were happening while he was rolling himself to get the Sefer. We're just rolling himself in the chair to get the Sefer. That's the amount of the conversation. He was to the point. He knew, he was aware every minute of his life what he was here for. When he was young, One day, all the Talmidim of Porat Yosef went to the Galil, to the Tzaddikim. And he wasn't coming. They came, they told him, come with us. He says, no, I have to do Chazara of Baba Kama. Today I can't go. They went and they came back to check where he was. He was in Daf Tzadi Zayin, 97. In a day that they went to the Galil and they came back, he covered 96 tapim of Shas. Imagine what Torah he had. And many times he told people, you think I know it? He sat once with a Bahur and he was testing him on this, and there was a big Tosafot in the page. He asked him, you learned this Tosafot? Oh, it's too big to this. So he started, without the Gemara, he started saying it, the Tosafot Ba'al Peh. So the boy, when was the last time? He says, I don't remember when last time. But they told him, you should know. If you would have done Chazara of this Tosafot 200 times like I did, you would know it like I do also. So it wasn't all, he woke up and he was a genius and he grasped everything. Who learns 200 times the Tosafot? But that's what he was. He was able to take Am Yisrael to the highest levels of understanding of what Torah is, what Psak is, what he did for Psak. There is no one that could have done that in our generation. The questions are difficult. Who can talk about technology? Who can talk about science, about medicine without quoting the Teshuvah of Rabbi Ovadia? Every aspect of Jewish life, in any way that the Jew was affected, he had an opinion based on halakha and on Sfarim, upon Sefarim, that you could sit there and watch and say, they say that one day somebody walked into the Chubino Rav and he was totally distraught. This was one of the great Chachamim in Yerushalayim, the Rav of Chubin, and he was totally distraught. And they asked him, what's going on? He was pacing, he was up and down, and he's totally nervous. It wasn't his character. And he didn't want to say, after a while, they pressed him. He said, I just got the Sefer, Yabia Omer, from an Avrech in Yerushalayim, a young man. It's mind-boggling what I saw there. That an Avrech in our generation, a young man in our generation should write something like that? It's impossible. But you know what he meant? What he meant is that it makes us, now it raises the expectations of the entire generation. He was looking at himself, the Chubino Rav was a big Talmid Chacham, and he says, if this can be produced, then how do we look? This happened. Be'ezrat Hashem, the loss is unbearable, and yet we don't feel it yet. But if we go out understanding what this man was, and his love for Am Yisrael, his love for Torah, then we have become much richer in our character, in our Avodat Hashem, in our Yirat Shamayim, in the way that he only had. It was his special style that he learned from Moshe Rabbeinu, and I want to end off with this. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah tells us a statement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu confirmed, Ve'aish Moshe hanav me'od mikol ha'adam al penei ha'adama. The man Moshe was exceedingly humble, more than any person on the face of earth. Yet we find in Moshe Rabbeinu, at the time of the Egel, when he comes, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Ve'ata hanichali, I'm saying it fast because it's late, but it's important to say it. Hanichali, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, let go, desist from me, let go of me. And the Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbi Abahu, Imale Mikra Katuv, Yefshal Leomro, if this weren't written in the Pasuk, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling him, let go of me, you wouldn't be able to say this. But you know what happened? Melamed shetafso Moshe leHakadosh Baruch Hu ke'adam shu tofes et chavero bebigdo. That Moshe Rabbeinu took HaKadosh Baruch Hu and held him as a person would hold his friend by his jacket. And told ve'amar lefanav ribono shel olam, eni manichacha, I will not let go of you. Ad shetimchol v'tisrach lahem. There is a Moshe Rabbeinu who's an anav. where all of a sudden, out of character, he gets a special azut diktusha, where he goes and he grabs HaKadosh Baruch Hu by his clothing, and he tells him, I'm not letting you go. I'm no longer the Anav. Now I have to fight for Am Yisrael, and if I have to fight for the future of Am Yisrael, then I have to put on kochot that I don't have. Everything that I don't have in my character I have to find in order to be able to fight for Am Yisrael, for the spiritual existence of Am Yisrael. This was Rav Ovadia. He was Anam Mikol Adam. He didn't know what kavod was. He didn't know what olam hazeh was. He didn't know what to eat, what to sleep, what to dress. He didn't know any of this. It wasn't part of his life. But when it came that Am Yisrael was at risk, he knew to stand up and to scream and to not be the nice person that he was naturally, and to go out to war, because he learned that. That's leadership. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Anav, when it doesn't cost Am Yisrael, when it costs Am Yisrael, you have to go. You have to go, and you have to make sure that you protect Am Yisrael from anything that will deviate them from Derech HaKodesh, deviate them from the way of Torah and Mitzvot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should make it that Mashiach comes soon, and we have the Chiyat HaMetim, and we see him with all the Tzadikei Elyon get up and come, and in the meantime, let us learn from his ways. Let us emulate all that he taught us. Let us learn his Farim, and let us see that there is a level of Kedusha that the person can reach, that is achievable by everyone who's willing and able to put the effort into it. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zocheh to the Geula Shelema b'mera b'yameinu. Amen.
Please give your attention to the screen. And I'd like to thank Mati Ben Salom for arranging all, Rabbi Assayag for speaking.